Hello and welcome to World War II, part 12, the war goes into 1941. So we ended part 11, with some of the Italian early ventures horribly backfiring, like the attack on Greece. They were thrown back and repulsed. Then Greece invaded Albania, of course, the disaster at Taranto, which took out half of the Italians' line of 6 battleships once the new ships had joined the advanced fleet. And basically, Italy suffered a massive number of reverses in Africa too, at the hands of the 7th Armoured Division and the 4th Indian Division, which of course was replaced by the Australian units that came in when the Indian Division was reassigned. So basically, on November 18th, Hitler receives, the Italian foreign minister and the Spanish foreign minister. Now, he does not, hold back on the Italian foreign minister over the disastrous Greek campaign, and he expresses that it's caused him a lot of anxiety, about the strengths and competences of the Italian high command. Now, Hitler argues, basically to the Italians that if the British acquire bases in Greece at Athens, Thessalonica, Larissa, they'll be able to both bomb the oil wells at Ploesti, the Romanian oil fields. Hitler informs them, tells them that Germany probably must intervene, although Hitler says this will not be until March 1941. He calls on the Duce, to make a radical change in his policy towards Yugoslavia, which must be attracted, into the orbit of the Axis, perhaps by promising Yugoslavia the port of Thessalonica when the Greeks are beaten. Mussolini must not forget, that the British air bases in Greece pose a threat to Albania and the whole of southern Italy. Now, Hitler also says it's necessary to close the Mediterranean, to seek an accord with Turkey, and to persuade Romania, to accept a stronger German garrison, and Hungary to allow the passage of German forces to defeat the British in North Africa, and to induce Spain to enter the war by attacking Gibraltar, something that Spain does not do. They remain neutral throughout the war. Now, meanwhile, there's still heavy fighting on the Greek front. The Italians have not done fantastically well. Now, on November 19th, Spanish Foreign Minister Serrano Suna, on instructions from Franco and Spanish Supreme Command, repeats to Hitler and Ribbentrop that Spain needs 400,000 tons of grain and 2 months' preparation before it can attack Gibraltar, even though Hitler has promised help by German units under Operation Felix, what I spoke of. Now, in fact, Franco had already decided that he was not going to drag Spain into the war. Meanwhile, on November 19th, heavy air raids happen on Birmingham in the UK as the Luftwaffe continue up their pressure. And meanwhile, the RAF, bombs the Skoda works at Pilsen, in Czechoslovakia. So flying all the way across Europe, Czechoslovakia, they bombed the Skoda works. Now, on November 20th, the Hungarian Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, sign a protocol in Vienna binding Hungary to the German, Japanese, Italian Tripartite Pact. So basically Hungary is now formally alliancing with the 3 members of the Tripartite Pact. Now, on November 21st, on the Greek-Albanian front, major Greek successes reported in a broad spectrum, The Greeks capture Karitsa, capturing over 2,000 men and over 135 artillery pieces. Meanwhile, on November 21st, heavy RAF attacks on Libyan bases of Benghazi, Birka and Benina continue. Now, basically, the following day, Italy accepts via communique that Karitsa has fallen to the Greeks. Now, on November 23rd, Romania, following Hungary's lead, also adheres to the Tripartite Pact, forming alliance with Italy, Japan and Germany. Meanwhile, the Germans, leaving Birmingham alone, then launch a massive air attack on Southampton. And the following day, they launch air raids on Bristol. Now, meanwhile, Italians, the Italian Air Force launches a raid on the naval base of Alexandria, of course, founded by the great Alexander the Great himself. Meanwhile, 2 days later, the RAF also carries out a heavy night raid on Cologne, and following next day, 27th of November, they also repeat their attack on Cologne. So basically now the Italians, Germans and the RAF are spending a lot of time bombing each other's industrial bases. Meanwhile, on 27th of November, one Italian cruiser and 2 destroyers are damaged in action off Sardinia. Now on November 28th, further Greek successes are reported. The Greeks are giving the Italians a bit of a bad kicking. Liverpool, meanwhile, is attacked by large numbers of German bombers. So they've gone from Birmingham to Bristol to Liverpool, Southampton. They're just attacking indiscriminately everywhere, trying to bomb these industrial centres. UK civilian casualties in November are 4,500 killed and 6,200 injured. Now on 3rd of December, Greeks cross the river Kalamas and also advance along the coast, taking the village of Sarandi. Now on 4th of December, the Greeks occupy Permet, taking 500 Italian prisoners. And by 5th of December, the Italians have got an increasingly bad situation. They've brought in substantial reinforcements through Port of Valona and the airfield at Tirana, including Tridentina Alpine Division. But a good number of them fall out as they march up the line. They're extremely short of equipment. There's little reserves of ammunition or of winter clothing. Of course, we are now in December. And pretty much the Greeks are giving the Italians a good hiding. Now, on the 6th of December, Greek forces occupy Sarandi. And meanwhile, Marshal Battaglia resigns as Commander-in-Chief of Italian Armed Forces. General Ugo Cavallero is appointed as his successor. And on 7th of December, the RAF carry out a heavy night raid on Dusseldorf. Meanwhile, on 8th of December, resignation of Italian Admiral Cavagnari, Italian Chief of Naval Staff. He is replaced by Admiral Campione. Now on 9th of December, opening up Western Desert Offensive in Egypt, the British break through the Italian lines at Sidi Barini. I kind of covered a little bit of this earlier, but General Graziani's 7 divisions cannot manage the thrust of the 4th Indian Division and 7th Armoured Division. Basically, we went through that, but I'll just cover it over again. The Italians have done nothing since taking Sidi Barani on September 16th, but dug in instead of continuing advance. Now the British, advancing puts the entire Italian force in danger. Within 2 hours, the British troops entirely surround the entrenched camp of Nibewa, killing, among many others, General Metelli, who's caught by the attackers in his pyjamas. So a very dignified end there. Tumar, Mktila and Sidi Barani fall into British hands in 4 days fighting. 4 whole Italian divisions are wiped out. 38,000 Italian prisoners are taken, including 4 Italian generals, while the British only lose 624 dead, wounded and missing. They've captured 237 artillery pieces, 73 medium tanks and 1,000 trucks. Now on 10th of December, the remnants of Italian troops retire westward. And Italy had over 250,000 man in army in Africa. Britain had a force maximum 100,000, but the organisation and equipment at British Army gave them just a massive advantage. On 11th of December, Sollum is heavily shelled by ships at Royal Navy. Italian troops resist Wavell's forces bravely at Fort Capuzzo and Sidi Omar. And on December 12th, the only Italian troops left on Egyptian soil, apart from, of course, the prisoners, are those holding up the British advance on Sollum and the forces in the neighbourhood of Sidi Omar. Now, Churchill sends a telegram to General Wavell in the evening with his biggest and most sincere congratulations on his splendid victory over the much larger Italian army. Meanwhile, on December 12th, heavy German night bombing raid on Sheffield this time. Now, on December 13th, Hitler issues Directive Marita, providing for dispatch of 24 divisions to the Balkans. German troops begin moving through Hungary to Romania. Hitler's already preparing to clean up the mess created by Mussolini in the Mediterranean and southern European areas. Now, Pierre Level, Vice President of Vichy government and champion of a more powerful collaboration with Germans, is arrested on Petain's orders 2 days before Napoleon's son's ashes are returned to France by the Germans. Now, on December 17th, Sidi Omar and Sollum fall into British hands, The situation is now direly severe for the Italians, and there seems to be no respite. On 18th of December, Hitler signs Directive number 20, which outlines the plans for the invasion of the USSR. which is still to this day the largest invasion of history. Of course, before covering the Operation Barbarossa, the events of it, I will also do a part of my World War II breakdown going through the setup of the forces and the plans, everything like that. So basically, on 19th of December, 130 British Wellington bombers carry out a heavy raid on Mannheim. Now, on 20th of December, British naval sweep in the Adriatic is announced, and also on December 20th, further heavy night raid on Liverpool. Now, on December 23rd, Churchill broadcast to the Italians, one man, and one man only, was resolved to plunge Italy and all those years of strain and effort into the whirlpool of war. Italian prisoners in the Western Desert campaign at the moment stand at just over 38,000. And on December 24th, the day before Christmas 1940, President Roosevelt makes a speech in which he sharply attacks the Axis powers. Now, also on December 24th, 1940, Rudolf Hess, the deputy Nazi leader, broadcasts a Christmas message where he states, and I quote, "Divine justice has turned against England. We are carrying on the fight in the belief of the superior value of our people, for the Almighty has also created the German people, and service for this people in thus also service in the belief in the Almighty who created it." On December 25th, King George VI delivers his Christmas Day message in which he quotes, "The future will be hard, but our feet are planted on the path of victory, and with the help of God, we shall make our way to justice and to peace." Now, on December 26th, Boxing Day, the Luftwaffe bombs London, after allowing the British capital a truce on Christmas Day. On December 27th, Nauru, an Australian protectorate in the Pacific, is shelled by a disguised German ship carrying the Japanese flag. So basically, an Australian protectorate in the Pacific is bombed by a German ship that has purposely flown the Japanese flag. So if witnesses saw that ship, they would identify a nation by the flag and assume the Japanese had launched an attack. Now, that is a veiled attempt by the Germans to drag Japan into the war by creating a false flag attack against the Australians on behalf of Japan. Now, on December 29th, President Roosevelt broadcasts, "We must be the arsenal of the democracies." Now, also, heavy incendiary raids on London, most famous buildings including the Guildhall, 8 Wren churches and Trinity House are destroyed or severely damaged. Now, Hitler issues a New Year proclamation, in a Nazi party rally. Hitler states, and I quote, "1941 will see the German Army, Navy and Air Force enormously strengthened and better equipped. Under their blows, the last boastings of the warmongers will collapse, thus achieving the final conditions for a true understanding among the peoples." UK civilian casualties in December are 3,800 killed and 5,200 injured. And thus ends 1940, the war continues into 1941. And there's no let-up in the African campaign. Now, on 1st of January, British naval and air bombardment of Bardia, the Italian strongpoint on the Egyptian frontier. And Ribbentrop also meets the Bulgarian minister Filov in Vienna and makes arrangements with him for German troops to cross into Bulgarian territory. They are preparing to hit in the Balkans. Now, on 2nd of January, further attacks on Bardia are launched by the British. And on 3rd of January, the British, reinforced by the 6th Australian Division, as I mentioned on last part, 4th Indian Division basically has been sent to Central Africa. The 6th Australian Division joins the fray, and with the arrival of the Australian Division, they resume the offensive in Cyrenia. Now, Bardia defences are pierced by the Australians, and Italian prisoners taken on the front are totaling 8,000. Now, General Wavell, Commander-in-Chief at British Forces in the Middle East, receives a request from London to begin large-scale preparations for the dispatch of a British expeditionary force from Egypt to Greece. This possibly determines Wavell not to press his advantage over Italians by pursuing them further for the time being. So pretty much Wavell, who has got the Italians completely disorganised and on the run, has now been ordered to prepare landing British troops in Greece. So this is the UK trying to counter German moves into Romania, Bulgaria, etc. Now on 4th of January, on the Greek-Albanian front, the Greeks launch an attack against Valona from Berat to Klissura. Now although severely stretched by November offensive and having the equivalent of only 13 divisions against 16 Italian divisions, the Greeks are trying to achieve a decisive victory over the enemy, who are receiving continual reinforcements now. Now on 5th of January, Bardia falls to the British despite staunch resistance from the Italian general's troops. The British take 40,000 prisoners. They also capture 462 artillery pieces, 130 tanks and 700 trucks. British casualties are only 454. So General Bergonzoli manages to withdraw from Bardia and reach Tobruk with a few thousand of his men. Now on 6th of January, to the Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, Churchill gives priority, to aid to Greece at the risk of sacrificing any further advance in North Africa. Churchill already knows that Hitler is going to go for Greece. Now, the Prime Minister argues that help for the Greeks in their attack on Valona is essential to avoid any lessening of Greek resistance or even capitulation. Now, a few days later, on receiving reports of German troop concentrations in preparation for a large-scale action in Balkans, Churchill tells Wavell that once Tobruk is captured, all operations in Libya must be subordinated to the urgent needs of the Greek front. Now, President Roosevelt also gives a message to Congress stating that weapons are to be supplied to the democracies. So Roosevelt is stepping up his intention of supplying the Free Peoples against the Tripartite Pact members at the moment, Germany and Italy. Now on 7th of January, British and Imperial forces continue to advance from Bardia to Tobruk. The first contingents, make contact with defences at eastern sector of Tobruk. Now, fall of Bardia has reduced the number of troops available to Italian Commander-in-Chief, General Graziani, by more than half. So for defence of Tobruk, he has less than 25,000 men, some 250 artillery pieces and 70 medium and light tanks. Now, west of Tobruk, the Sabratha Division is at Derna, the 17th Regiment at Benghazi, and an armoured group at Mechili. Now, on 8th of January, on the Greek-Albanian front, the Greeks press vigorously against Klissura, which the Italians have to evacuate the next day. Now, the Greeks do not succeed in breaking through towards Berat, and their offensive against Valona breaks down in the fighting for Klissura. Now, the Italians suffer serious losses, to a number of their divisions. 4 of their divisions suffer large losses. Now, the engagements in this sector last until the end of the month. Now, in course of a British bombardment of Naples, that's, launched by the RAF, serious damage is done to the battleship Giulio Cesare, and she has to be moved to La Spezia for lengthy repairs. The Vittorio Veneto, one of the latest battleships, is also hit, but not seriously. Now, President Roosevelt on 8th of January, orders that all American warships should be gradually brought up to full wartime establishment. So basically, the skeleton crews they have, Roosevelt is now ordering that the crews must now start to be increased to full war capacity. Now on 10th of January, just after dawn off the island of Pantelleria, 2 Italian torpedo boats attack a British naval squadron escorting a convoy bound for Malta. Now the Italian torpedo boat Vega is sunk. 40 German aircraft, Junkers Ju-87 Stukas and Ju-838s, then go into action and hit the aircraft carrier Illustrious, which is severely damaged, and the cruiser Southampton, which is sunk by the British themselves because it's impossible for them to recover and maintain her condition. The battleship Warspite, manages to escape the bombs, but 2 merchant ships in convoy and other smaller vessels are hit. This is, the first action by German aircraft in the Mediterranean in the war, and just shows that they will play a much more prominent role to come following some of Italy's disastrous efforts. Now, Italian and German aircraft carry out heavy raids on Malta. Part of the 10th Flieger Corps has recently been attached to the Italian air squadrons operating over the Mediterranean to bolster the Italian Air Force in that region. And it has now got bases in Northern Europe. It's come from bases in Northern Europe and played a very important part in operations against shipping in the Norwegian campaign. So they now have been transferred to command of the Italian, working in conjunction with Italian Air Force. Now, this group, stationed on Sicilian airfields, comprises 96 bombers and 25 fighters. Now, on the Greek-Albanian front, Greek troops finally enter Klissura. Now, on the 11th of January, a Lend-Lease bill is introduced into the American Congress. More preparations for supplying weapons and munitions. Now, the Soviet-German pact, signed in Berlin, delimiting the new frontiers between the two countries, and a trade agreement is signed in Moscow. Now, on the 12th of January, British aircraft from Malta attack the airfield at Catania. Now, on 13th of January, Hitler invites King Boris of Bulgaria to Germany. The Führer demands from King Boris of Bulgaria that Bulgaria signs the Tripartite Pact. 2, opens her borders to German troops to attack Greece. And 3, agrees to take active part in Axis military operations. Now, King Boris temporizes those conditions. Plymouth, meanwhile, suffers a 3-hour bombing attack. Now, on the 14th and 15th of January, General Wavell and Air Marshal Longmore are in Athens for a review of the situation with the Greek Premier Metaxas, and the Commander-in-Chief of the Greek Army, General Papagos. Now, on Albanian front, the Greeks now have 12 divisions and 3 brigades of infantry. Now, 4 divisions are guarding the Bulgarian border, but one is to be transferred from Macedonia to Albania, where the Italian reinforcements are now arriving every day. It's reported that the Germans have at least 12 divisions in Romania, and that in Bulgaria, German officers in civilian clothing are directing road and airport development. So there's already German divisions in Romania, and now there's plainclothes German officers in Bulgaria planning out airfields, roadways, supply routes, etc. The Greeks therefore asked the British for at least 9 divisions, and more air support. Now, Wavell tells the Greeks that all he can give them is 1 regiment of artillery, 1 regiment of anti-tank guns, and 1 anti-aircraft regiment, and about 60 tanks. Now, later on, in course, at next 2 or 3 months, Britain would be able to provide about 3 divisions and a stronger air contingent. But at the moment, Wavell doesn't really have much spare guarding his successors in Egypt and into Libya. He just doesn't have the troops to spare without sacrificing his position in North Africa at the moment. So on 15th, of January, during the night, German reconnaissance aircraft overfly Valletta, in Malta to pinpoint the aircraft carrier Illustrious, which put in there to repair the damage during the air attack of 10th of January. So the Germans have attacked the Illustrious and damaged it, and now they're sending aircraft out to spy where it has ported. They're clearly after it. Now on 16th of January, the following day, about 80 Stukas taking off from base in Sicily attack Valletta in an attempt to sink the aircraft carrier Illustrious and put the island's arsenal out of action. Now, the carrier is hit by 1 bomb, but the bombers do serious damage to port installation, several churches, and a number of public and private buildings. Now, the raid claims about 100 victims amongst civilian population, many of them women and children. And this is first of a long series of raids by Germans, which the Maltese refer to as the Illustrious Blitz. The Germans are after that aircraft carrier, which can be a major threat to German and Italian shipping in the Mediterranean. The operation cost the Germans 10 of those aircraft. Now on 17th of January, intensive activity by German aircraft over Malta. This is from Fliegerkorps 10, of course, transferred from the northern Germany region. Now, on 18th of January, another Luftwaffe raid on Malta. Now, this time, the targets are the airfields at Lucca and Halfar. 6 aircraft are destroyed on the ground and many others damaged. The Greeks accept such help is offered by the British, as was offered a few days ago. But basically, the Greeks are now fearing that the German preparations are going way faster than what the British can countenance. Now, on 19th of January, in Italian East Africa, the Commander-in-Chief of British forces in Sudan, Lieutenant General Sir William Platt, opens an offensive against Italian forces in Eritrea. Now, he has under his command, 2 divisions, the 4th and 5th Indian Divisions, together with his Sudanese Defence Force. Now, the Italian troops in Eritrea, mostly concentrated in area of Kassala, and and at the border strong points number about 17,000 men. They have light tanks and artillery support. So the British now are going over to the offensive in Eritrea. Now in Mediterranean, further heavy air attacks by Germans on Malta. The Stukas succeeding hitting the aircraft carrier Illustrious again, but not seriously. So they are really targeting the Illustrious. They just cannot get the Illustrious finished. Hitler and Mussolini meet at the Berchtesgaden, okay, to discuss Italian critical situation. Mussolini asks that German reinforcements should not be sent to Albania, but does not refuse some German assistance in North Africa. So Mussolini very prideful on the Albania situation, but he's not turning down help in North Africa, which of course would come in the form of the Desert Corps to come under Erwin Rommel. Now 30th of January, Hitler's already made his own decision to send to Libya in support of the Italian army there. The German 15th Armoured Division under the command of aforementioned General Erwin Rommel, the future known Desert Fox. Now in Mediterranean, okay, British Chiefs of Staff say that the presence at Luftwaffe in Sicily makes it impossible to carry out the plan to seize the island of Pantelleria, okay, between Sicily and the northeast coast of Tunisia by a commando operation. The Luftwaffe could cause that operation to just go completely foul. Admiral Cunningham, okay, has in any case come out against the plan. Churchill's enthusiastic support, he would not accept any addition to the already immense difficulties involved in supplying the Mediterranean squadron. Malta is thus destined to remain for a long time the only British strong point in the central Mediterranean. Now in Romania, the militia of the ultra-nationalist anti-Semitic Iron Guard movement rises against the Romanian government. Now on 21st of January, okay, in Italian East Africa, the British take Kassala near the border between Sudan and Eritrea. The Italians fall back to Agadat, okay, and onto the tiny fortress of Keren. Now North Africa, okay, Australian infantry launched their attack on Tobruk. The town has already been cut off by the British 7th Armoured Division. Now they are starting to prepare to take Tobruk. Now, two urgent messages from London reach the commander at British land and naval forces in the Mediterranean. Admiral Cunningham is ordered to provide Malta with the air cover necessary for its defence, and General Wavell is told that the capture of Benghazi is still given the top priority in the he should not basically make his next objective beyond that. Benghazi is the major target. Now, Major General O'Connor had already ordered the Australian 4th Brigade to press on to Mechili and the 7th Armoured Brigade to continue its advance on Derna. These two are important centres in Cyrenia. Now, Churchill sends a message to Malta. The eyes of all Britain and indeed of the whole empire are watching Malta in her struggle day by day, and we are sure that success as well as glory will reward your efforts. Now in Romania, okay, Romanian General Antonescu, although it was the fascist green shirts who put him in power, calls in the army to put down the Iron Guard anti-Semitic movement targeting the government, and many members of the movement are arrested. Now basically in Tokyo, the Japanese Foreign Minister Matsuoka, okay, states the Netherlands, East Indies and French Indochina, if only for geographical reasons, should be in intimate and inseparable friendship with our country. So this is like the first overture since the war started from Japan on territorial claims themselves. You know, the signing of the Tripartite Pact between Germany, Italy and Japan in 1940 now has basically, you know, started a whole procession of events that would lead to a day that would live in infamy that I will cover. Now, on 22nd of January, okay, the Italian garrison at Tobruk surrenders after blowing up the port installations and the cruiser San Giorgio. The British take about 30,000 prisoners and capture 200 artillery pieces and 70 tanks. The British themselves, okay, only have 16 tanks with which they launched this attack, okay, but the British tanks, okay, the Matildas, can punch the Italian tanks full of holes, but the Italian tanks are not very effective in return, and in place of getting those 30,000 prisoners and many more Italian killed and wounded, the British have lost only 500 men. Now by evening, the British 7th Armoured Brigade is about 20 miles from Derna in Cyrenia, while patrols from Australian 4th Brigade are on the tracks leading west and southwest from Mechili. Now in Italian East Africa, okay, the British go over attack on the border of Italian Somaliland, okay, in Trans Juba region, and take Jalib. The Italian troops have no choice but to withdraw. And meanwhile, General Wavell is ordered to make arrangements to support the Greeks by every means possible. Now, Chief of Staff, okay, of the Bulgarian army, General Boydev, in the same night of King Boris, dismisses the representatives at German High Command a plan for collaboration, okay, and cooperation between the two countries. Now, in the Mediterranean, the British aircraft carrier Illustrious is finally able to leave Malta, and it heads for Alexandria. Now, on 24th of January, okay, one of the first tank battles at North African War takes place near Mechili in Cyrenia. The British 7th Armoured Division destroys 8 Italian tanks and captures one, losing only 1 heavy tank and 6 light tanks. On 26th of January, okay, the Italians launch a counter-offensive in an attempt to recapture Klissura. So, now, on 26th of January also, Matsuoka, okay, reiterates Japanese claims for the Pacific Basin region. On 27th of January, okay, in Italian East Africa, 4th Indian Division reaches Agadat, okay, in Eritrea. Now, also on 27th of January, the United States ambassador in Tokyo reports to his government that the Japanese Imperial Staff is preparing plans to attack American air and naval bases in the Pacific. He particularly mentions Pearl Harbor. This is in January 1941, okay, and the United States ambassador has reported to the Americans that the Japanese are planning to attack air and naval bases, including Pearl Harbor. We're still nearly virtually 11 months away from the horrific event. So on 29th of January, okay, Italian troops in North Africa, in a bid to escape encirclement by British 7th Armoured Division, evacuate Derna and prepare to retire from the whole of Sardinia and form a new, more solid defence line at El Aglia, okay, on the border of Tripolitania. So, 30th of January, okay, British and Empire forces occupy Derna. On 1st of February, okay, the Italians abandon fully the Benghazi region. They're leaving. The Italian government is forced to officially ask for German reinforcements for the North African campaign. They've held on, took a severe kicking, and now they have officially put in a diplomatic, call for support from German forces. Now, first thing in the morning, okay, General O'Connor, commander of British troops in Libya, sends General Brigadier Eric Dorman-Smith to General Wavell's headquarters in Cairo to get his authority to cut off the route of the Italian troops retreating into Tripolitania. Now, in Italian East Africa, okay, British forces finally take Agadat, okay, in that campaign. Now, the United States, okay, reorganizes their naval forces in this time, regrouping them into 3 core fleets, okay, the Atlantic Fleet, the Pacific Fleet, and the Asiatic Fleet. So on 2nd of February, okay, Dorman-Smith returns from Cairo and reports to General O'Connor that Wavell authorises his action against the retreating Italian forces. Now also, okay, on the 2nd of February, the German War Council reviews Operation Barbarossa, invasion of the Soviet Union, okay. Now, they review the plans that were earlier called for, what I mentioned, based on a report on Russian army presented by General Halder. The Soviet army is estimated to have 145 infantry and 26 cavalry divisions on the Western Front, with 40 motorised brigades, about 211 formations in all, facing the near 190 of Germany and her allies that they can put in the field. So they're already way ahead of schedule, pre-planning that attack, getting dispositions of Soviet forces and numerical strengths. Now, a substantial numerical superiority, concludes Halder's report, but the technical and strategic favour is firmly in the hands of the Germans. Now, in France, okay, the formation of a new pro-Nazi party, the Rassemblement, okay, National Populaire, is announced. The party is under the aegis of Lavelle. Now, on 3rd of February, okay, General Graziano orders a retreat towards Tripolitania. The German Supreme Command decides to send the first contingents of the Afrika Korps to Libya, okay. In Italian East Africa, the battle for Keren begins, one of the British main targets in East Africa. Now, China, okay, after a swift landing in the area of Waichao, Japanese units occupy Tamshin, east of Canton. The Japanese have been fighting in Manchuria and China for some time, and although I haven't covered it prior to the start of the war, I will do something on it at the end of the war to cover that. Now, February 4th, okay, first British reinforcements begin to arrive at Micili from Tobruk. The 4th Armoured Brigade can now push on westward to cut off the Italian troops retiring from Benghazi. So the RAF, okay, after a near fortnight, okay, of not launching any German bombing raids, you know, the RAF now decide it's time to step up with the bad weather subsided, and they make a heavy bombing raid on Dusseldorf. Now, on February 5th, okay, in North Africa in Cyrenia, the British 4th Armoured Division and the armoured cars of the 11th Hussars succeed in cutting off the Italian column, making, okay, for Edge Dabia from Benghazi. Now, by dusk, okay, General O'Connor's men have penetrated far westward into southern Cyrenia. The 4th Armoured Brigade is approaching Beda Fom, where the Italians are hastily concentrating for what may be their last stand. Okay, a 5,000 strong column, Italian gunners and civilians, surrenders southeast of Beda Fom. So the Italians are trying to form their last defence line. Now, Hitler writes to Mussolini expressing his unhappiness at the way Italian commanders are conducting operations in North Africa. He offers his ally the help of an armoured division on condition that the Italians hold firm in the interim and do not withdraw as far as Tripoli. So on 6th of February, okay, North Africa, the first Benghazi victory. Australian troops enter the city of Benghazi. More than 80 Italian tanks are destroyed. Bergonzoli and 6 senior generals are among many thousands of prisoners taken. In Berlin, okay, Hitler received General Erwin Rommel, who is to command the Afrika Korps, which has been sent to support the Italian army in Libya. Although technically under command of General Albert Kesselring, commander at Southern Operational Sector, which includes Italy and Mediterranean, Rommel is to have direct access to Hitler himself. So Hitler's so unhappy with what's gone on in North Africa that he's giving Rommel his immediate ear on the campaign and the military situation at any time he needs to speak to Hitler. On 7th of February in Cyrenia, the Italian 10th Army is surrounded at Beda Fom, their last defence line. They've been trying to come out, and it is their last stronghold in Cyrenia. Now, what remains of Italian forces who've lost about 20,000 men, 200 guns and 120 tanks at Beda Fom, concentrate on coastal road, leading towards El Agalia on the border between Cyrenia and Tripolitania. The whole of Cyrenia is now in British hands in what has been a lightning campaign. The British really basically fought the Italians with the initiative. The initial Italian attacks were sloppy, disorganised, not very concentrated. When they made their initial gains and stopped to resupply, the defensive formations were very lacklustre. Wide open gaps that the British 7th Armoured Brigade could fully exploit, and the British basically have carved up the Italian forces in the region time after time, taken multiple towns and cities and just thrown the Italians into disarray. Okay, it really is crazy. On 9th February, British troops reach El Agalia on the border between Cyrenia and Tripolitania. Now, Pisa and Leghorn, are now bombed by aircraft from the carrier Ark Royal on 9th of February. Genoa, shelled by the battleships Renown and Malaya and the cruiser Sheffield. The surprise attack highlights the inefficiency of Italian defences. An Italian naval squadron and an air reconnaissance squadron failed to spot the British ships. So the Italian planes and shipping in the area failed to spot the British warships approaching, and therefore air raids and offshore shellings take place. Now, Churchill in a major broadcast warns Bulgaria not to join the Axis and tells the Americans this famous quote, "Give us the tools and we will finish the job." On 10th of February, German and Spanish governments signed a secret agreement by which Spain undertakes to resist any attack by forces of the Western Allies. Now, Churchill sends a telegram, to Wavell, Commander-in-Chief at British Forces in Middle East, stating the destruction of Greece would overshadow the victories won by British forces in Libya, and our indifference to the fate of our allies might induce Turkey to change its attitude and join the war, as Turkey did in World War I. Fighting with the Central Powers. So on 11th of February, General Rommel, commander of the Afrika Korps, arrives in Rome. And on the next day, February 12th, General Rommel arrives in Tripoli in Libya. Now in North Africa, General Italo Garibaldi is appointed to succeed Marshal Rodolfo Graziani in command of Italian forces in North Africa. Churchill sent a telegram to Wavell congratulating him on the speedy capture of Benghazi, but ordering him to hold up the advance and to prepare to send all forces not absolutely indispensable to Greece. Only one squadron of fighters remains available to the British in Libya. Wavell orders O'Connor to return to Cairo, and only the lightest defences are left to cover the territory recently captured from the Italians, which is a disaster, with Rommel now arriving in North Africa. In Italy, in East Africa, in Eritrea, Italian Alpine troops managed to recapture the Forked rock positions in area of Keren, forcing the British 4th and 5th Indian divisions to withdraw eastwards. So basically, the British now have had major success against the Italians, but now what they're wanting to do, Churchill's paranoia over Greece being crushed is now forcing them to stay their hand. And really, for me, I would have kept on the Italians, okay? I would have kept them on the run. Greece's fate was sealed. Britain could never have managed to maintain military supplies into Greece and stop it fall into a combined German attack. It just would not have been possible. And I think that Britain could have took advantage of the weakness of Italian forces in North Africa, with the fact that the Africa Corps not yet fully arrived and been set up, that pretty much they could have wiped the Italian army out in Africa as a fighting force and been much better prepared to deal with the Africa Corps. But that ends part 12 of Ultimate World War II. Part 13 coming very, very soon.